Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the UC Health Training Center for today's episode of Broncos Now. Team reporter and host Sydney Jones here. And coming up on today's episode, Broncos lead writer Aric DiLalla joins the show for a game recap. And we'll hear from several players as we spoke to them in the locker room last night following the game. All that and more coming up. Broncos fell at home 16-9 versus the Jets and now sit at 2-5. So we're kicking today's show off with Broncos lead writer Aric DiLalla joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio for a game recap. Aric, another disappointing loss last night. Seems like the Broncos have been in every single game so far this season, and it's like Coach Hackett said. I mean, the opportunities are there. They're just not executing on them. Just overall, what were your thoughts of the game?
Yeah, now 4 losses by 1 possession.
Yeah.
It is the same old story again and again. Unfortunately, the Broncos play really good defense. They score, at times it seems like they're going to be able to do enough, but just not able to string together possessions, not able to make the big plays when it counts. Russell Wilson talked about that a few weeks ago, those game-altering plays that the Broncos have to make them. Again and again, they have not been able to do that. And we saw kind of the latest example of that on Sunday against the Jets. Several plays throughout the game that could have changed the tone, could have changed the outcome. But obviously the one that stands out there is the 4th and 3 pass to Courtland Sutton in the end zone. A lot of contact there from Sauce Gardner. Could have been PI, but ultimately Courtland Sutton has to find a way to come up with that ball. That's what he said after the game. He's got to make that catch. We've seen him make that catch before with someone on him. He's got to be able to haul that in. And listen, I know he expects more from himself. This offense expects more from themselves, but they've just got to find a way to turn things around because at 2-5, you're already looking at a dicey situation. And at this point, you can't even talk about the playoffs as an option that needs to kind of just be on the shelf for a little bit. The Broncos just have to find a way to win a football game and get out of this 4-game skid.
It's obviously never easy when the team's without their starting quarterback, but overall, kind of what did you think of Brett Rippon's performance?
Yeah, I thought Britt did an okay job, probably a good job considering the circumstances. It was pretty windy out there.
Yeah, it was.
Wasn't always, it seemed like on the same page with guys. Had one interception that, he called kind of a misread. He thought the safety was going to back off there, and that obviously hurt the Broncos with that pick. Yeah. I thought he made a good throw on that play to Courtland, obviously an aggressive play rather than just checking the ball down and getting the first down. Same thing at the very end of the game with the pass to KJ Hamler near the end zone. But listen, he seemed like he checked to a quarterback sneak at one point, which got the Broncos a first down. He was only sacked once. I thought Brett did a pretty decent job, good enough to put the Broncos in position to be in this game. I think maybe the Broncos asked a little bit too much of him, though. I mean, throwing the ball 46 times, and granted, a lot of those came on the final 2 drives as they're trying to get back in the football game, but it was a 1-possession game for most of the game. The Broncos had 70-something yards rushing at halftime, and obviously were a missed extra point away from being tied at the half, and they got away from the run game. They came out and they threw 6 straight passes, and there was, I'm sure, something they liked in that matchup, but I just think maybe you got to rely on the run game a little bit more. That's more passes than Russell Wilson has thrown at any point this season. So they asked Brett Rippon to do a lot. He did a decent job, but obviously not quite enough from anybody to win this football game.
You mentioned the run game. This team rushed for, I believe, 72 yards in the first half. Looked like they really got going. The best we'd seen from the run game, I think, all season. But then they came out in the second half and only had 33 yards. What do you think changed at halftime there for that team?
Yeah, I think some of it was the attempts. I think some of it was the commitment to running the football.
Yeah.
There's a play here and there where they just weren't quite as successful. But there were a couple situations where it was 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. You think maybe the Broncos run the football here, and they instead choose to pass it. And some of these short passes are in some ways like a run. But you're right, they did get away from it a little bit. They weren't quite as effective when they did run the football. But that's something they're going to have to go back to, I think, because in the first half it was kind of a bright spot for this offense. Yeah. And if you maintain that success, and listen, it's not like they were down 14 points, so that's part of it too. Is that you were down 1 point for a long time, down 3 points, 4 points, and then finally down 7. I think there were opportunities there, but they've got to go back and look and decide. And I think Nathaniel Hackett said too, there were a couple of plays where they had runs called, at that stretch of 6 straight passes. They had runs called. They checked out of them because of the look. I understand making that decision to run the best play for the look, but at some point you got to, I think, just run the football.
It was nice to see Jerry get back out there. It looked like him and Brett had a really great connection. I mean, Jerry had arguably one of his better games this season. Finished the day with 7 catches for 96 yards. What did you think about him overall?
Yeah, I mean, he was the kind of the spark there, him and Greg Dulcich. I do think there's still moments where, Jerry made, I think at the start of the second half, kind of a leaping grab where he got both feet down, a really nice contested catch. But there's still moments where, there's a drop here, and it's not just Jerry. It's all over the field where, a guy can't quite haul in a pass that it might get you kind of those yards you need to get the drive going or keep the drive going. And so, I thought Jerry put him in position, and then it seemed like when they were in the red zone or near the red zone, Courtland Sutton kind of became the guy that they went to. Again, it seems like things are not quite clicking. And Brett Rippon had kind of an interesting point after the game where he said, we need to make sure that we are on the same page in terms of the plays we're calling, what everybody is supposed to be doing, and then how we're attacking this defense. And so it sounds like the Broncos are obviously they're trying to find a solution to this, but they're kind of at a loss right now in terms of how to go about that. And so, that could mean how they're involving Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, Greg Dulcich, all these guys. So a lot to figure out there, but you're right. Jerry Jeudy was a bright spot in this game.
Well, this Denver defense once again held the opposing offense to just 1 touchdown. I mean, they're such a consistent group here, and we heard from Courtland Sutton in the locker room afterwards, him just praising this defense and saying that this offense needs to step up for them because they're playing at such an elite level.
Yeah, and he unprompted just kind of said, hey, before his scrum was coming to an end, and he said, I want to say something about the defense. Obviously, you give up the big 62-yard touchdown. That's about the only. And then there was one, I think it was in the second quarter, where it was second and 25, something like that. And the Broncos give up a first down that leads to points.
Right.
Outside of that, the Broncos defense was pretty flawless. And listen, even if you make those mistakes, you should win a lot of football games in this league when you only give up 16 points.
Oh, yeah.
The Jets were 3 of 14 on third down. They only had 10 first downs all game. They threw for 121 yards. Zach Wilson was sacked 3 times. I mean, they did everything. If you look at this box score, you go down the page and you look at the total first downs. The Broncos had 21 to the Jets 10. You look at the third down efficiency. The Broncos were better there. You look at the total net yards, all sorts of things. Every stat looks like the Broncos won this football game except for the final score. And so again, the Broncos defense is doing everything it possibly can. We know these guys are frustrated.
Yeah.
They're tired of talking about the same kind of story, both on offense and defense.
Right.
And if the Broncos ever get this figured out offensively, they do have the defense that can make something happen. But you just kind of feel for those guys right now.
Definitely. Eric, in news today, the team signed running back Marlon Mack to the active roster. I think early this morning, maybe late last night. What do you think overall about that move?
Yeah, I mean, Mike Boone obviously suffers an ankle injury yesterday against the Jets. The Broncos are kind of in a unique situation here where they leave from London on Monday, so they don't have kind of the Tuesday, Wednesday, even Thursday to figure out roster moves or see where guys are from a health standpoint. You kind of have to make an instantaneous decision. I think there was a report that the Broncos had reached out to the 49ers to let them know they were going to sign Marlon Mack off the practice squad in the middle of the game yesterday after Mike Boone was hurt. So you got to move quickly here. Right. Mack obviously has had a lot of success in this league as a dual threat guy. Back in 2018, 2019, suffered a really bad Achilles injury at the start of 2020 and hasn't quite been the same guy, but I know he's trying to prove himself. And, if he comes in as the third back here, if Mike Boone can't go this week, a good option, but we'll have to see how quickly he's able to get up to speed.
For sure. Well, Eric, as you know, the team heads to London in just a few hours now. How do you think they really approach this week? Obviously, it's still a business trip. They're there to play the game on Sunday versus the Jags. But what do you think's the mindset this week, even being in London with this 4-game losing streak?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 ways to look at it. You can look at it as we're 2-5. We're gonna check out, and whatever happens. I don't think that's the way this team is going to go. I think the other way is you can view it as this is a kind of a unique opportunity to go to another country and play football, and we can enjoy that experience, but also realize, hey, we're all going to be kind of together in this hotel for the week. It's almost like a training camp type
for sure
atmosphere.
Could be a change in scenery.
Exactly. Let's use this as a scenario where we can kind of flip the script of this season, get a win going into the bye.
Yeah.
You know, Nathaniel Hackett said Russell Wilson's trending in the right direction to play. Hopefully he's back and can provide a spark on offense. And, you know, 3-5 at the bye is, of course, not where you want to be, but it's better than 2-6, and it keeps you, you know, ahead of one other AFC team in the wild card race. And then you come back after the bye and you see if you can go on a little run here. But the Broncos, they have to make kind of a surge here, a concerted effort to stay together, to keep working hard, to try to get a win. And, you know, it's not just about the win-loss record, City. I mean, guys, you know, there's rumors swirling about the trade block.
Right.
A win here could be the determining factor maybe between who stays and who goes. And so
Sure.
it's a big week, and the Broncos could really use a win, obviously.
Well, Aric, are you ready to head to London this week?
I'm ready. I'm excited. It should
I'm
be fun.
excited too. It'll be a really fun week. Aric, appreciate your insight always. Excited to head overseas.
Yeah, see you in London.
Yep, see you there. And following the game yesterday, we heard from several players in the locker room as they discussed the team's performance versus the Jets and their frustrations. Take a listen.
I mean, at the end of the day, we just got to win. I'm just going to sound like a broken record, but that's all that matters. That's all anyone cares about. And, you know, we always are falling short. We just got to find a way to win those games.
You know, once the game is done and the clock hits, you know, zeros, you know, it's nothing else that we can do besides watch the film and learn from it. And, you know, we got a lot of games ahead of us, and we can't, you know, dwell too hard on, you know, this beginning half of the season. It's on us to, you know, take advantage of, you know, everything that's ahead of us and, you know, maximize these opportunities. You know, the season isn't over. We have a lot of opportunities ahead of us, and it's on us to make sure that we maximize those and, you know, to eliminate this feeling that we have and that we've been having the past few weeks.
Yeah, we ain't never going to divide. You know what I mean? We're a brotherhood. We're a team. You know, as long as we all together, we're going to stay together regardless of the situation, regardless of the outcome. You know what I mean? It's family. You know, family don't fold on each other. So we're going to be good regardless.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in today and every day. There will not be a new episode of Broncos Now tomorrow as the team is traveling to London this afternoon. So I hope you will all meet me right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube on Wednesday from London. I'll see you all then.